What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, and this is the first part or the second part of a live deep dive, but the first part of a much more deep dive into King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizards live catalog. I don't know if you've been paying attention to what they're doing, but they're pretty much this past tour they just did, like the late summer tour that they did, they pretty much dropped every single version of that, every live show as a bootleg. And they also posted this on their website. If you go to kinggizzardandthelizardwizard.com, I think it's .com, there's a little tab on the top that says bootlegger. When you click on that, this is what you see. You see those words, that image. They are encouraging people. They are providing people audio files of their live shows and saying, hey, download it, sell it. Just send us some of it so we can sell it too. But you have our permission. So it's an exciting time to be a King Gizzard and a Lizard Wizard fan. But I'm going to start off today with three, probably the initial three in this sort of bootleg series that they're doing. I think this is the initial three. If they dropped some before, I don't think they dropped any before this that were like quote unquote bootlegs, even though they officially released them. But they have three shows that they dropped in early 2020 to raise money for, there were a series of wildfires in Australia, and I guess it personally affected like the animals. And so they released these, and all of the proceeds went to a group called Animals Australia, which were all affected by these wildfires and fires in Australia in 2019, 2020. And the three shows were all 2019 shows. There was an Adelaide 2019 show, there was a Paris 2019 show, and a Brussels 2019 show. Pretty amazing three releases. They're all fantastic. Each of them is fantastic. And today when I was, at the end of the day, I had a break at school. It's Thursday. I'm ready for tomorrow, which is Friday. So I had some time on my hands. So I went through these three releases, and I think there's 44, not counting Evil Star, which is like this pre-recorded piece that opens up all three shows, 44 different songs played over the course of these three shows. Seven of them were played twice. Venetian 2, People Vultures, Hot Water, This Thing, Billabong Valley, Mars for the Rich, The Bird Song. 37 songs that were unique to the given show. Now, if you get other shows from 2019, you're going to get repeats. But they did a fantastic job of picking three shows with very little repeats. And even the songs that are repeated, when they pop up, kind of provide a different vibe to each show, or have a different vibe in the show. I think all three are excellent. But I'm going to rank them just because I believe that shows have their own integrity about them. Like, that's why my favorite concert releases are complete shows. I'm not a big fan of shows in which we took the best performance of each song from throughout the tour. For the most part, if it's a band like Genesis, right? Or even to some extent, somebody like Jethro Tull, who have done that and had really successful live albums. Even Blue Oyster Cult did it with Extraterrestrial Live, which I think is fantastic. Sometimes the way they approach shows is same set list every night. Doesn't really matter that they're picking and choosing because the vibe is not that much different. But with a band like King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, like, you need the integrity of the show because each show does just have a different vibe. I've personally seen them live about 14, 15 times over the years, maybe more than that, close maybe 20. Every show feels like a different show, even though some of the songs might have been repeated. And I think these three shows, though they're from the same era, 2019, have some of the same songs, they each have different vibes. So I'm going to break them down in the order from 3, 2, 1. I'm not going to put the list up on the screen at the end. I think you can remember. I'll say it again at the end. But I highly recommend each of these. And obviously, no matter where you get it, King Gizzard encourages you to listen to their live music. So go listen to their live music. But yeah, three shows, all from 2019. Go in order. Let's knock this out. Let's get on to number 3. My number 3 favorite is the Adelaide show from July 12th, 2019. This is the second to last show of their Australia part of the tour before they would head off. I think they do some East shows and then head off into other places of the world. It does have the feel of a end of the tour. A bunch of our friends are here. We got some guest performers with us. Someone on flute's going to drop in on a couple songs. There's a very, we're about to leave Australia, let's have a good home time show vibe to this, which I think in a little bit of a way hampers the continuity of the show, the flow of the show. Really minor complaint. But the two reasons this is number 3, I absolutely love the show. There are fantastic things on it. But the 5th song is Psy Boogie. And Psy Boogie kind of takes me out of the experience. They open up with a run of Infest the Rat's Nets songs. Planet B, Mars for the Rich. Always awesome to hear a Mars for the Rich. That opening riff is fantastic. And a Venetian 1. Fantastic opening. But then they go into Psy Boogie. And that immediately, we're in a completely different ballpark at this point. They commit to that sound. We got that Psy Boogie sound, which is just that sort of synthetic ultrasound. And I think it kind of just from that point on sets up this run of songs which just feel like self-contained numbers. They're great, but the flow is lacking a little bit. If Psy Boogie had opened the show and then they drop into Planet B, Mars for the Rich, Venetian 1, and then off into Real's Not Real would be the next song if they just continue the set list, I think that flow works a little better. If they drop Psy Boogie towards the end, maybe after or towards even the middle, there's a Billabong Valley on here that's absolutely fantastic. Maybe if they drop it after the Billabong Valley, it works. But having it as like the 4th song of the show kind of just, for me, interrupts the flow. And looking to rank these, I'm looking for any reason. The other reason it's at 3 instead of higher is the closing song is Head on Pill, which I absolutely love. It's like a 30-minute version of Head on Pill. But Chunky Shrapnel and Live in San Francisco 16 both had Head on Pills. One of them wasn't called that. It was mostly Head on Pill, but it was given a different name. And because the other 2 shows have different encores that provide something different, I'm rewarding points for that, just for the variety. But this is a great show. And this is really representative of what King Gizzard does really well live, is that even though their songs themselves don't really vary too much from what they do in the studio, they breathe a little more. And I think the Billabong Valley on here is the perfect example. Billabong Valley is a great song. Has this weird little intense storytelling vibe. Has an intensity that doesn't quite match with what my vision of a Billabong Valley would be. I teach kindergarten, and there is a video of there was an old man down by the Billabong. What is that Australian song? Down by the Billabong. It's like a traditional Australian song. It's not Timey Kangaroo Down. It's that Down by the Billabong song. Waltzing Matilda. Yeah. And there's a video of that that's like a computer animated video, and the guy's all like hokey and stuff like that, and he dies, he drowns, he becomes a ghost. But I always have this whimsical vibe of what a Billabong is, but this song is more about the bong part of Billabong than the valley. The song starts off with vocals in the live, like on the studio version, you're right into the song. But here, they take that opening riff that underlies the vocals and they kind of play that first to set up a little more ominous vibe. They kind of allow that riff to have a little more space in the song. And so it gives Billabong Valley a much more intense vibe. And almost every song on here, if it's a thrash song, it's thrashing a little bit harder. If there's a doom element, they're leading into that doom a little more. People Vultures, which isn't in this show, but it's in the other 2, the doom aspect of it, they lean into a little more. So that's one of the things I want to point out about this show is, and all the King Gizzard live stuff, is just the way these songs kind of breathe a little more. So this Adelaide show starts off with 3 great thrash, Infest the Rat's Nest songs. We get a Psy Boogie, a Real Not Real, Hot Water, which sounds amazing. We get an Open Water with the drum solo. Or the drum jam. I think that drum jam also kind of hinders the flow a little bit, especially in this show. A Sleep Drifter, fantastic Billabong Valley. A nice fun bird song with that funky little boom, boom part at the end. Then we get we're kind of back into the flow of a show at this point, and the end, I think, is a lot stronger than maybe this middle part. We get that Polygon Wonderland trilogy of Inner Cell, that Radiohead type intro, Loyalty, and Horology. Fantastic run of songs. A really nice Plastic Boogie. And then we close out with an Organ Farmer and a Self-Immolate, which are just bringing back that heavy energy. Great way to end the show, or at least the main set. And then the encore is a 30-minute head-on pill. And I think it's Mackenzie or somebody's like, hey, how long do we have? And they're like, 35 minutes. Like, what? 35 minutes. He's like, oh. And then he's like, this next song is going to be a long song. And like, they invite the flute player guy, Adam Halliwell, who plays earlier on Hot Water, to come out. And they're like, hey, come back in 20 minutes and you'll do a flute solo. This head-on, there's a Hot Water quote, an Altered Beast quote, a Cellophane quote, a Mind Fuzz quote, a Heaven, I Am in Heaven quote, and a Rattlesnake quote. The Rattlesnake quote's cool because earlier in the show, the audience is chanting Rattlesnake, and so it's nice that they drop it in there. Fantastic show. I have it at number 3 because I do think the flow is just not as perfect as the other two shows. The flow just, I've explained why. But it's still worth hearing, and I highly encourage you to get it. But that's my number 3 in this run, live in Adelaide, 19. Adelaide. Number 2 in this run is Brussels, live in Brussels, 19. This is an interesting one, and it falls here because of the decision that was made. It is actually 2 shows, or parts of 2 shows. The first 9 tracks, which is 8 songs plus Evil Star to open, are from October 8th, and the last 8 songs are from October 9th. I do think they work well together. I think they complement each other. And I do like the fact that they included the 9th, because the encore of the 9th is Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, and that is just magical and beautiful and absolute psychedelic perfection. And honestly, if I were to go to a King Gizzard show, I am going to a King Gizzard show. If I have a choice between a head-on pill encore at this time, even if it is 25 minutes, or a float along, and I only get one of those, I'm in a float along phase right now, and I would probably pick that. So I love the fact that we get that, because we wouldn't have got that had they not done this. But I really do think the first 9 tracks or 8 songs of the October 8th show are kind of perfect. It is a doomy vibe that I really like. And when they switch over to the 9th show, we get a series of really spacey, jazzy songs that I also really like. But they also did that on the 8th. And so I kind of hope at some point we get both versions, like both complete shows are dropped by the band. I don't know if they have already. I haven't checked. I hope that happens. But either way, this is a fantastic listen. Opens up with Venetian 2. And then, so we get nice, big, just thrashy. I think this is one of the darker, heavier thrash songs. Then we get a really awesome Superbug, which kind of has that slower, doomy energy. We get an awesome The Lord of Lightning. Taking that off of Murder of the Universe, we lead into that riff a little bit more. It's just not as much of a tied into the narrative of the album, so it just comes across a little heavier. When we get faster, that faster part is a little thrashier. Absolutely fantastic. We get a Lord of Lightning, Alter Me 3, short little snippet, and then we get an Altered Beast 4. Just a fantastic run of songs to open up the show. Then we get a People Vultures, and we're leaning into that doomy. It's a little bit heavier. People Vultures on Non and Gone is great. People Vultures live is almost like a must hear. It is just an entirely different beast. It's just the doom energy. They're leaning into that a little bit more, and I like it. Then we get a This Thing, great energy in a This Thing. And then we get Sense. And Sense is just long and stretched out and jazzy. And there's so much space in here. And they're leaning into the jam band thing. They're leaning into the light, airy Sunday afternoon jam band. Like, it is a complete contrast to the heavy, doomy, like, I don't want to say lethargic energy of the first part of the show, but just that sort of heavier, more lumbering energy that just has so much weight behind it. But it works perfectly. And this is where the shows switch. In the actual eighth show, The River is next. And I think Mackenzie says after Sense, before they go into the next song, he goes, let's continue this jazzy vibe. Well, luckily, the song that they cut to on the ninth has a jazzy vibe, but I think The River would have been neater. I think they go into a Perihelion afterwards and a couple more heavy songs. But what we get now, we switch to the ninth. We get the wheel. Sounds fantastic. Has that almost Allman Brothers dreamy intro. We're staying in a jazzy thing. We get a nice bird song. Also has that kind of funky part in the middle. And then we get a Down the Sink, which is pretty fantastic. But then we get what might be the highlight of the show, if not for the Float Along, Fill Your Lungs that drops as the encore. We get a work this time off Oddments that is just absolutely epic. The guitar solo at the end of this thing is kind of a must hear, and it's kind of just like a next level. Like, this is King Gizzard guitar solo at the whole other level. It is absolutely fantastic. And I was trying to look up to see how often they play this song. I'm not sure if it's a heavily, where is that? What day were this? October 8th, October 9th. I'm not sure how often they play this, but it feels special. It feels epic. To have an Oddment song on here is just so beautiful. How many times did they play Work this time on this tour? I guess they played it a number of times. They played it 8 times. But yeah, they hadn't played it since the Stubbs show in Austin earlier in the year, which I was at, by the way. But yeah, they hadn't played it in like over a month, and it just feels special. It's absolutely, the Work this time is phenomenal. And then we get a really nice run of what are these from? Non and God Infinity songs. We get a Robot Stop, a Big Fig Wasp, and a Gamma Knife to close out the main set. And then we get that epic Float Along, Fill Your Lungs as an encore. A fantastic show. I do think like one complete show from either, preferably the 8th, would be better, even though, again, I wouldn't get that Float Along. But the rest of that 8th show is The River, a Billabong Valley, which has awesome doom energy, a Doom City, it's in the name, a Open Water, drum solo, but I'm okay with the drum solo coming later in the show. I think that's where it should go. A Perihelion, and then you would get an Am I in Heaven as your encore. But I'll take what I take. I'll take what I get. But, and also, I think this Open Water was the drum solo from the Chunky Shrapnel film. That's where that drum solo, it wasn't called that. It was called something else, I believe. But anyways, all right, but that's it. It's number 2. It's a great show. These are all great shows, but for me, it's number 2 for the reasons I explained. Sorry for rambling. Let's get on to number 1. And my number 1 of these 2020 released 2019 wildlife charity shows, Paris 19, October 14th, 5 or 6 days after the Brussels show. This thing is just an absolute beast from start to finish. It's just, they go into beast mode here and they kind of don't let up. And yeah, it's just fantastic. You get that Evil Star opener. You get Venetian 2, Perihelion, 1-2 punch, kind of floors you, just kind of sets you back. You're just a little bit stunned. Then they drop into the second of the Polygon and Wonderland sort of medleys that they would do. This one's more of a chop and cut and paste medley than the other one, because those 3 are just played in order. But you get 4 songs, shortened versions of each. One of them not as shortened as the other, but just back to back to back to back. And I almost think that in this order, these songs kind of work better than on Polygon and Wonderland. I'm saying that wrong. And it makes me want to go back and revisit that album a little more, having listened to all this stuff, because I think maybe there's I love that album, but for some reason, the order that they're played here. So we get the first 2 songs, Venetian 2, Perihelion. Then we get a Crumbling Castle. And when they drop into the Crumbling Castle, there's an epicness about this show. Like, opening with it is one thing, but then having 2 kind of heavy thrash songs to kind of fill up the first 8 or so minutes before we drop into that Crumbling Castle riff is just like, I'm all there. I'm in. This is like, yeah, this is epic time. Then the medley that they play for here includes them going into the 4th Color, then Deserted Dunes, Welcome Weary Feet, and then the Castle in the Air. Just an awesome sequence of music. Like 14, 15 minutes? Absolutely fantastic. Then we get a Muddy Water, great song. Then we get a People Vultures. Just like I said in that last, whenever it last appeared, the Brussels show, such an essential, was it? Yeah, it was Brussels. Such an essential song live. It is just heavier. They give it more room to breathe. It's a showstopper, and they almost always drop it like somewhere in the middle of the show when you just need something to like keep you going. Then they go into Mr. Beat. All right, one of my favorite King Gizzard songs. Love the sort of contrast it provides, especially on the album Non and Gone. Fantastic. We get a Hot Water, excellent. This Thing, excellent. Another Billabong Valley, excellent. Is that 3 Billabong? No, Billabong Valley would have been played. Would have been played in the last show had they not cut it. Really awesome run of songs. Kind of doomy. Some groovy stuff in there. Just kind of keeping the energy going. And then there's this awesome run of songs at the end. We get a Nuclear Fusion, Anoxia, All Is Known, a Boogeyman Sam. And when you just think that you've had the best time of your life, all of a sudden, to close out the main set, we get a dun, 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 dun. We drop into a Mars for the Rich. What an awesome song. That riff is fantastic. The bass heavy drive of that song is genius. Like, the energy of this show from start to finish is just fantastic. It just flows. It works. It's probably the heaviest of the shows. Even when we do get maybe a little slower or maybe not as chaotic like a Billabong Valley, there's still like deep, intense vibes in there. And that story is just compelling. Fantastic. And then for the encore, we get Am I in Heaven? We get a beautiful 13-minute Am I in Heaven with, we get a Head-On Pill quote. We get a Boogeyman Sam quote. We get a little bit of some Alter Me snippets in there. Absolutely fantastic. Great encore. Would prefer Float On. I've decided Float Along. I always call it the Modest Mouse song. Float Along is my preferred encore of these three. But that Am I in Heaven is just, it is so fantastic. Such an absolute treat to close the show. Yeah. And to throw in the other things and kind of do that Head-On Pill to it, where you're quoting other stuff, just raises it to another level. Just an absolutely, absolutely fantastic release. Paris 19. My number one of the 3 Australian Wildfire fundraiser bootlegs. All right, that's all I got. Like I said, I'm not putting the list up this time because I haven't gotten around to typing it up. But Live in Paris 19 is my number 1. Live in Brussels 19, my number 2. Live in Adelaide is number 19, my number 3. They're all fantastic. I would expect that out of a group of 50 King Gizzard and the Lizard fans, there would be a number of people, a percentage of people that would put each of those shows at number 1 because we all have our own favorite songs, and the diversity among these track lists, these set lists are absolutely fantastic. This band is amazing. Thank you for watching. If you've checked these out, let me know your thoughts. If you haven't checked them out, do so, especially if you're a King Gizzard fan. Go to their website and check out all the goodies they have on there if you haven't done that. This band is fantastic. They love their fans. They're giving us music. They've literally opened up the vaults to us. So I'm going to be in this King Gizzard deep dive for a long time. I deep dive into Zap Alive. I deep dive into Fish. Went down the Mo rabbit hole. Went down the Dead rabbit hole. Still going down the Dead rabbit hole. That rabbit hole doesn't seem to stop. But King Gizzard is doing that. King Gizzard is like, I want to hear every show now. Like, I'm at that mood where I'm like, I want to hear these songs played in different places in different order with these things surrounding them to see how it creates different vibes. Like, they're creating that Grateful Dead type thing. No, they don't have Dark Stars and they don't jam to that same sort of degree that the Dead do. But what they do in their little world is intriguing and fantastic and magical and wonderful. And I'm really happy to be alive when this band is like thriving as it is. So yeah, that's it. I'm rambling. Subscribe, like, share, comment. Check out this band. Check out these albums. Peace. Talk to you later.